My name's Karen Bowness. I'm the Marketing Manager here at LiveHire, and today I'll be the webinar moderator. Our topic for today is Accelerate Hiring. We're going to take a deep dive into some strategic insights to help you to hire faster. I'll introduce you to our guest speakers shortly, but first let's kick off with our acknowledgement of country. We would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet today around Australia and the elders past and present. We acknowledge the ongoing connection that Aboriginal people have to this land and recognise Aboriginal people as the original custodians of this land. So, as I mentioned, today we're here to talk about accelerating hiring, and we're so lucky to have the amazing Barbara Bruno with us to share her expertise. Hi, Barb.
Hi, how are you, Karen?
I'm fantastic, thank you. And then we also have Liron Rudovitz, our Business Development Director here at LiveHire. Hi, Liron.
Hi, Karen. Hi, everyone. Thanks for attending.
And of course, I'm your webinar moderator. We've already met. Before we kick off, I'd just like to do a few housekeeping items. First up, we will have live Q&A at the end of this session, but we invite you to ask your questions as we go through while you're thinking of them. And to do that, all you need to do is click on the Q&A bar down the bottom there. Just click on that and submit your questions. Any that are admin related, I'll respond to straight away. Any that are specifically for Barb, I'll ask her those at the end, or if you have any for Liron, I'll also ask him those at the end. We are recording today's session, and you'll receive a copy of the recording within 24 hours of today's session concluding. As you leave today, you'll notice you'll be presented with a survey. We'd love it if you could help us, give us your feedback on how you found today. If you have any topics or speakers you'd like to suggest for our future webinars, that would be amazing. And of course, if you'd like more information about LiveHire, please tick the box for that. Now, we've got a couple of events coming up that I'm super excited about. In June, we'll be going to do Employer Branding Live in Brisbane. That's on the 18th of June. If there's anyone that's in Brisbane that would like to come along to that, just drop me a note in the Q&A box, and I'll give you a link to do a registration early, which will allow you to get your seats first up. Then, of course, will be that whole Employer Branding Live topic that we've been doing around Sydney and Melbourne and now Brisbane. We'll be concluding that series with a webinar. So everyone that hasn't been able to attend the live sessions or is in another state, we'll be able to jump onto the live webinar with the amazing Mark Puncher. So everyone won't miss out, no one will miss out. So let's just have a quick look at the agenda for today. We're almost done with our housekeeping. I'm going to pass over to Barb in a moment to talk about accelerating hiring. She's going to give you her tips and tricks. Then we're going to pass over to Liron, who's going to explain how you can accelerate hiring with LiveHire. And then at the end, as I mentioned, we've got 15 minutes of live Q&A. So it's a great opportunity to ask Barb or Liron any of those pressing questions that you might have. Okay, so now I'm going to introduce Barb. Barbara Bruno is a recruitment trainer and the owner of Good as Gold Training. She's an internationally recognised expert in the recruiting and talent acquisition profession. She's an award-winning entrepreneur, speaker, author, LinkedIn learning instructor. She has over 16 courses on LinkedIn. She's been the #1 rated speaker at many national, state and corporate conferences in the US and abroad. She is by far our most popular speaker. So welcome, Barb.
Thanks, Karen. No pressure there with that introduction. I always tell Karen, keep the introduction really short because people don't care, and she always sets me up. So I hope that I live up to my reputation that I have with you, Karen. So today we're going to talk about strategic insights for speeding up talent acquisition, because you and I both know that you lose top talent when your hiring process takes too long. And if you have not upgraded your hiring process in the last year to 18 months, chances are you're losing top talent. And I want to commend all of you who are on this call, because without you, your companies would not be in business. You are the heart that keeps your company in business. You're the ones that find the talent that can help your company hit goals and objectives. So I want you all to feel extremely good about what you do for a living, because finding top talent that becomes retained and engaged is not an easy task right now, not in this competitive job market. Delays in hiring can lead to losing exceptional candidates. It's happening every day. It escalates recruiting costs. It diminishes productivity. And candidates just get disinterested. You know, you have to understand that when someone's interviewing with you, they're interviewing with other people. They don't only interview with you. And even increased staff turnover happens due to burnout. If you've got a requisition open and somebody else is covering the job, they're only going to do it just so long, and then they're going to resent the fact that you haven't filled the job, and then you're going to lose a good person that's currently working for you. Today, what we're going to do is explore essential strategies to enhance your recruitment effectiveness and your hiring efficiency. And I want to share as many ideas as I can with you today, hoping that some of these ideas are things that you can easily implement at no cost to you. So the big question is your hiring process a bit of a fixer-upper? And if so, what is it really costing you? Now, I hope your hiring process does not resemble this fixer-upper, because obviously this needs a lot of work. But I can tell you, when I've been involved in helping companies upgrade their hiring process, this is sometimes what I find. You know, a shaky hiring process does more than just dent the budget. It disrupts your ability to attain your company goals and objectives. Your company cannot hit goals and objectives without the right talent, and it negatively impacts your company brand. And brand is so important. We're living in an age of technology. I heard that there's some additional training LiveHire is going to offer on branding. Branding is so important, you know, and your brand and your culture is not what's on your website. It's what people say about you behind your back. You know, the stakes are high, but the cost of inaction is even higher. What worked 2 years ago is ineffective today. What worked 18 months ago is ineffective today. I'd be so bold as to say what worked 12 months ago is not working today. The workforce and the workplace worldwide just keep changing rapidly. And that's why you have to consistently upgrade your hiring process. If you take too long to make a move, competitors are going to charm away the people you want to hire, or they're going to lure away your top talent and your future leaders. Companies are seeing middle management get taken away more than ever before. You train them, you mentor them, you get them right where you need them to move into leadership with your company, and then they're lured away. And so all of your retention and engagement really do start with your hiring process. So I want you to start with 4 easy to implement upgrades. And these are just simple things you can do right away. I want you to be like water. Adapt fast. Market changes and what candidates want are always in a flux. A nimble approach means you can make decisions faster and keep up with potential hires without missing a beat. If you interview someone who you know is, and not everybody's a rock star, not everybody is this unbelievable talent that you know is not going to be on the market long. But when you interview someone that you know is not going to be on the market longer than 24 or 48 hours, which is how long superlative talent is on the market, you need to have a separate hiring process to fast track those high achievers, those peak performers, or you're going to lose them. You've got to tech it up. I wrote a book, High Tech, High Touch Recruiting. And I believe it's still a relationship building profession that we're in, but from AI driven tools to smart data crunching for your decision-making process, you've got to lean into the latest technology because it can streamline your process. And you've got to learn to mine your database. I would be so bold as to say that I bet you could fill 20% of the jobs you currently have open if you just went into your database and mined your database. You've got people in that database that you could place in jobs. It's just that you're not mining that database. Number 3, you've got to make it a great right for candidates. There's a race for talent out there, and how candidates feel about your hiring process can make or break their decision to join you. Candidates feel that you don't care about them. I do calls for job seekers once a week, and I did one yesterday. I had 1,700 job seekers on the call, and none of them know what I do for a living. And all they did was complain about talent acquisition people and recruiters, that they don't care about me. All they care about is filling a job. You've got to be respectful. You've got to make the process, enjoyable for them. It has to be enjoyable interactions, and you've got to be honest and transparent. And you also have to really embrace diversity for the win. Weaving diversity and inclusion into every step of the process enriches your team in every possible way. And there's a new generation, Generation Z, and Alpha's right behind them. And they're going to be the most diverse population that's ever worked worldwide. And so if you don't have, a plan to weave diversity and inclusion into your hiring process, this is something that will hamper your ability to attract the best talent. So it all starts with the intake session. And if I hear one thing from talent acquisition professionals all the time, is that the intake session is a joke. The hiring managers don't want to talk to you. You don't get much done. They sort of just throw an old job rec at you and say, get me one just like the last one. But I want you to think about your intake session as a GPS. Say that you came to the States and you're in California and I tell you to drive to New York. Without a GPS, it would be pretty difficult. And if you don't take a great intake session, I'm telling you, you're hampering the whole process. And your attitude and planning impact the results that you're going to achieve during the intake session. A lot of this is on you. It's how you approach your hiring managers. Your hiring managers need to view you as a partner. You're a valued partner that's going to make them look good or make them look bad. And so when you want to change the way that you're conducting yourself during an intake session, always show them how it's going to benefit them. Even you have a tattoo on your forehead, and your hiring manager is definitely, and the tattoo is WIIFM. What's in it for me? You wouldn't have shown up today for this call, this training, if you didn't feel it was going to benefit you. Your hiring managers will not give you answers to questions and will not respect you and partner with you unless you show them how a thorough intake session is going to benefit them and help you find the best talent for them. There are 13 areas that you need to address during an intake session. And most intake sessions don't address half of these. Number one, you've got to set goals for your recruiting process. You've got to align on the profile for the ideal candidate, because often there's a few people involved in the hiring process and they're not even on the same page. You've got to have an updated, detailed, updated requisition. It can't be one that they used before they hired the person in the job, because if somebody's been in a job more than 2 years, they're using that person's talents. And so that old requisition, even if it's only 2 years old, is dated because it doesn't include the talent of the person they hired. You've got to discuss the job requirements and determine the must-haves. And the way you can determine the must-haves is by breaking down jobs down into percentages. So often you get a list of 15 things. And if candidates don't have all 15, they don't want to interview them, when in essence, 4 or 5 of those aren't even utilized. When you're discussing job requirements, break them down into percentages. What percentage of the time are they going to use these things? Because often you can cut that list that they're giving you in half. You've got to obviously determine the job title and the salary range. What is budgeted for this job? And the most important thing I want to teach you tonight, maybe not the most important, but one of the most important things, is you've got to start asking for 5 performance objectives. This will change your life. This is a real game changer. We've been getting performance objectives for 12 years now, and it changed everything we did. The people that we hire, the people that we put out on jobs, become engaged and retained. They're not quitting. They know exactly what was expected of them. And if you've never asked for a performance objective, you might even not know what this is. A performance objective is you go to your hiring manager and say, okay, what are the 5 things my candidate needs to do within 6 months or a year for you to come back to me and say, best hire we've ever made. That candidate is awesome. Best hire. What do they have to achieve? Because again, when you ask for performance objectives, often there's a real disconnect between number 7, getting the performance objectives, and number 3 and number 4 and number 5. All of a sudden you realize they're judging this candidate on things that they didn't even ask you for, and they're judging them on things that are not even included in the list, and so many things in the list they're not even going to be judged on. And what you do is you get the performance objectives and then you share them with the candidate. So the candidate knows exactly what they have to do in 6 months or a year to get a stellar review, to really be saying you've done a great job. If you do nothing else as a result of this call, please do this, because, and this is also going to position you different with your hiring managers. They're going to go, why do you need to know that? Because what we've learned is, so often they're confused. It's a new job. They don't know what you expect. I want to tell people up front what they need to do within 6 months or a year to be one of our best hires. And by the way, when we share this with candidates, sometimes they go, I don't want to be judged on that. Well, I'd better know that. I would rather know that up front than after we hire them. But that is a game changer. Get a target date to hire. When do they really want to hire? Every hiring manager wants their job to be your priority. And you and I both know that all job requisitions are not created equal. You've got to know the problem that exists. If this is a job that's impacting revenue of a company, that's a hire. If it's a job that is impacting the company's ability to function, that's a priority hire. You've got to know the target date to hire and the problem that exists. And then you've got to determine, okay, throughout the hiring stages, when are you going to talk to the hiring manager? What are the touch points? Agree on that up front. Agree if there's going to be reference, background, credit checks, assessments, or testing. And if you got a fast track and outstanding candidate, you got to start those really early in the process. After the first interview, you're not going to wait to a second or third interview. And discuss your sourcing strategies. Ask point blank, ask your hiring manager, are there any companies you prefer to hire out of? Or are there companies that you don't want to hire out of? Because most hiring managers really respect certain companies and they don't want to hire people out of other companies. You need to know that. It saves a ton of time for you. Pay special attention if the person leaving the position has been in the job more than 18 months, because I'm telling you, the requisition needs to be updated around their talents that the employer is now using. And after the intake meeting, what I want you to do is I want you to communicate with the hiring manager. And what you're going to do is you're going to basically share action items with them after the intake meeting, because you're going to show them the results of the intake meeting, what you interpreted that they told you. And then you want a weekly conversation to update your progress. You need to say to them, every Friday, you and I are going to talk. Or maybe if it's a more immediate need, a lower level hire, you might say, let's talk every other day, depending on the level of job you're working at. But after the intake meeting, set up the action items for both the hiring manager as well as yourself, so you're on the same page. The way that you can really satisfy hiring managers faster and with better talent is to build a robust pipeline of top talent. There is a candidate shortage. You can't only target 15% of the talent pool who are conducting an active job search. Only 15% of the talent pool is in an active job search. And that's what your competitors are doing. You've got to review positions that are always in demand and ask about future needs. When you're talking to your hiring managers, don't only talk about the job that you're working on now with them. By the way, what do you see yourself needing in the next 90 to 120 days so I can proactively be reaching out to talent? Most people do not intend to retire from their current job, and they're open to new opportunities that represent their next career move. Unfortunately, the best talent only feel that we care about filling a job, not about them. Don't pitch a job too early. When you're talking to candidates, you have got to tell them that you're going to take your direction from them. You want to know what they see as their next career move. Don't assume that what they're doing now is what they want to do next. COVID changed everyone. It changed everyone. The workforce, the workplaces, it doesn't even resemble what it was pre-COVID. You've got to realize you're a stranger that they don't know or trust. Even if they applied for a job at your company, they still don't know or trust you, and you want to focus your initial contact on just finding out what's most important to them, and don't talk about a specific job. Now let's talk about what kind of recruiting presentations attract passive candidates for your pipeline. And I'm going to give you a sample script here. Good morning. And you're going to use their name. My name is Barbara Bruno, and I represent the best. You're going to talk about the type of company and where you're at. In the past few months, we've hired several outstanding, let's use engineers as an example, engineers with similar experience to yours, and they're doing extremely well, which is why I'm reaching out to you. When would it be most convenient for us to discuss what's most important to you in your next career move? It's interesting because 80% of all email are not open right now. And that's big data that I have access to. And, email is losing its effectiveness because, again, if your email are not being open, you got to change your subject line. Look at the email you open. I don't know about you, but I delete most of the email I get. And I think we all do. What email do you open? Because when you open something, chances are someone else is going to open those too. So you want to make sure that you're tracking what subject lines. A subject line that works for me is answer to your question, because then they think they asked me a question and they open their email. But this script works because, again, you're showing the person that, you're not pitching a job. You're just saying, we've hired several people with experience similar to yours, and they're doing great. That's why I'm reaching out to you. Another recruiting script could be, good morning, good afternoon. My name is Barbara Bruno. I was so inspired to call you when I reviewed your resume, your CV, your LinkedIn profile. You have outstanding experience, and I've helped other individuals with similar experience advance in their career. I'd love to do the same for you. Now, I don't want to assume for 1 minute that what you're doing now is what you want to do next. When is it best for us to continue the discussion? Again, this sounds different than every other person that's reaching out to them. If they say yes, set up a time to talk to them. And sometimes you need to talk to candidates before work, after work, over the weekend. You're in a profession, not a job, and we've got to talk when it's convenient for the people that we're representing. Get detailed information and know the hot buttons of the candidate before you present a job. And because then if you present the right opportunity, you're going to say, that job you discussed, I've got that job. You're going to gain the trust and respect and interest of the candidate. If you have nothing that fits them, you might have a job in mind and you interview someone and you realize it's not a fit. What's important to them, we can't offer. And so you tell them that, I've got several positions open right now, but now after I've talked to you, none of them is going to fit exactly what you're looking for. So what I'm going to do is I will call you the minute we have anything that can offer you what you're looking to do next. Sometimes we need to walk away, and candidates respect that. Then you ask them, do you know anybody? The job I have is this particular type of position. Do you know anybody who might be good for that? This is not what you're looking for, but I would love to know if you know anybody. You try to get a referral from them. Now, how do you dramatically increase referred talent? Because if you ask somebody who they know, if you ask somebody who they know that's above average, if you ask somebody who, and you never want to say, who do you know who would fit a specific job, unless you've already presented something to them. But if you add these six words from your last place of employment, it will alleviate them saying, I don't know anybody. So starting today, starting as of today, every time you hear somebody say to you, I don't know anyone, you've asked the wrong question. Now you know you've asked the wrong question. So what you're going to say is, who was the best engineer from your last place of employment? Who was the best accountant from your last place of employment? Who was the best .NET developer from your last place of employment? They can't say, I don't know anybody. Because when we ask for referrals, they think we want them to give us their coworkers, and they're not comfortable with that. They're not loyal to their last place of employment. That's why they give you names. And sometimes they'll go, you know what? There were 2 or 3 really good engineers. Well, I would love to network with all 3 of them. Would you be willing to give me all 3 names? It's amazing how well this works. From your last place of employment is another one of those things. The job objectives is a game changer, and these 6 words are a game changer. They'll never tell you they don't know anyone, because of course they do. They're just not giving you a name because they don't know you or trust you. This question, they're going to think of their past place of employment, and you're going to get referrals. Now, I talked earlier that you have to fast track high performers. And I'm not kidding you, because when you interview a high performer, they're on and off the job market very fast. And this is a discussion you need to have with your hiring managers, so they understand we have our normal hiring process, and then we have our fast track. When I've interviewed a high performer, and I'm only going to call you when I know the person that I've interviewed is one of those people that, and a high achiever is someone that they've got more responsibility than they should. They're being paid much more than they should at this level of experience that they have. They've been promoted. They're doing a lot more than somebody with their level of experience. And chances are they graduated in less time. They got great grades. They've been a high achiever their whole life. And so when you're going to fast track high achievers, there's 7 things you need to know. Number 1, speed it up. You have got to keep the process. You've got to learn to make quick, confident hires. You've got to talk the talk. You've got to use tech to keep the candidate in the loop, make them feel valued, let them know that you understand they're not going to be on the job market long. Get their time frame. What is your target date to make a change? And you're going to be shocked when they say, well, I've got a couple other things going, because they're also very well networked people. Share performance objectives with the prospective hire. Let them know exactly what's going to be expected. And by the way, high achievers love that. They love to know that you're going to share with them exactly what they have to do to get a stellar recommendation, because then they know they're going to advance. Give them a VIP treatment. Whether you're going to hire someone or not, whether they're a fast tracker or not, the candidate experience is extremely important, because the people you don't hire are talking about their experience to other people. There may be somebody that you want to hire, and because you didn't treat somebody well, they told their friend's not going to apply with you, because the word on the street is your interviewing process is not kind. They didn't feel good going through the process. You got to prep your team. Your interviewers have to ask the right questions. They've got to show enthusiasm and sell the company, sell your culture. You know, if you're interviewing millennials, Gen Z, or, you know, eventually Alpha, they want to know what philanthropic endeavors, you know, that you're backing. Gen Z wants to know if you're friendly to the environment. You got to sell the dream, sell where they can go with your company. You know, you want them excited about the opportunity, and you've got to learn from no's. If you've had any offers rejected, then you've got to really define your approach. If you have people ghosting you, if you have people not starting, if you have people quitting shortly after they start, or they start and they're not engaged, I am telling you, it's your interviewing and hiring process. It's not, don't blame the candidate. Every time you point the finger at them, there's three pointing back at you. You missed something. Engagement and retention start with your interviewing and hiring and recruiting process. Now, how do you reduce costs? Because, you know, again, if you're going to go back to hiring managers and that and say, you know, we need to speed up our process, we need to do things differently, they're going to immediately think it's going to cost them money. So what you're going to say is, by the way, we can speed up our process and let's reduce costs. Panel interviews are one of the biggest answers, one of the best answers for speeding up the hiring process. And the reason why panel interviews are so great is because it removes emotion and bias from your hiring process. If you want to have more diverse hires, if you want to be more fair, there could be one person in your hiring process that is unconscious bias that they're not even aware of. And so when you do a panel interview, you have multiple perspectives. You know, you've got a diverse group of people, they're doing the panel interview. The person that they're going to answer to leads the panel, and the other people on the panel just dig deeper into the answers that the person is giving. So only their direct report is asking questions. They've got the performance objectives for the job, and all the questions are being asked against the performance objectives. You know what this person has to achieve. So you create the questions in advance, you create a score sheet in advance, and now no one person has the authority to screen somebody out. There's a consistency in questions. Job seekers complain to me all the time that doesn't the person doing the first interview ever talk to the second person, because they ask me the questions over and over and over again. And the problem is some hiring managers don't have structured interview. They're shooting from the hip. And if they don't ask the same question, they can be accused of being biased. You know, and again, there is an inclination to hire people who are like you. We all, if I interview somebody who's like me, talks like me, looks like me, acts like me, I can convince myself they're the right hire because I like them. And that's not necessarily the best hire. You know, sometimes people that interview the worst are your best hires. And I want to repeat that. Sometimes the people that interview horribly, they're not good interviewers. They can be your best hires because they don't know how to interview, because they're not a job hopper. They're very uncomfortable in the interviewing process. They're not a salesperson. Unless somebody's in sales, interviewing is abnormal. It's not the normal thing that they do. And selling yourself is the hardest thing to do. So if you're interviewing a salesperson, they should be able to sell themselves. Everybody else, they're not comfortable. And that's why sharing the performance objectives up front. And if you notice they're nervous, you know, let them know, say, you know what? I can remember being in your shoes. I still get nervous interviewing you. I hope you're not nervous. Let's just have a conversation. Calm them down. But I want to tell you again, if you're consistent with your questions, and if you do, you know, a multiple perspective, you're going to realize that sometimes the worst interviewer is your best hire. You also have collective decision making. It's not one person calling the shots based on a gut feeling, or I like this person. You know, this setup encourages everyone to bring evidence and observations to the table rather than just saying, I like them. It's checks and balances. Panel members can call each other out, you know, sometimes even without meaning to. You know, if one interviewer's feedback seems off base, you know, others can kind of, you know, counter that and wonder, you know, wait a minute, this person might be unconsciously biased. And you want to make sure your panel is diverse in age brackets, you know, race, age, you know, you want a totally diverse panel, you know, because again, it ensures a broad range of viewpoints and experiences, and it makes it harder for a single type of bias to dominate your hiring process. And last, it takes the emotion out of the process. And I'm going to share something with you that I don't share with many people because I didn't realize I did this for 10 years. I had unconscious bias and didn't realize it until somebody that worked for me brought it to my attention. Almost everybody that worked for me until this was brought to my attention was an ex-college athlete. And I didn't know I was doing that. But if I would interview individuals, I hire a lot of salespeople, and I just love to hire. I didn't realize I was only hiring ex-college athletes, but once my team put a very qualified person in front of me and I screened them out and they go, why? And I said, it's just not a fit. And they go, no, Barb, specifically, why are you screening him out? And they go, is it because he didn't compete in college? And I go, that's ridiculous. And they go, Barb, the last 20 hires we've made, everybody that works for us is an ex-college athlete. We think that that's one of your parameters, whether you're going to admit it or not. It was. And I didn't even realize it. That can ruin a hiring process. And here and this was many years ago, but I didn't even realize it. And I was interviewing for a living and didn't realize when I was doing hiring for myself, I had an unconscious bias. It's so crucial for panel members to be trained in recognizing and combating unconscious bias to basically make the most out of this format. And also, what's nice is your panel members feel comfortable and nobody's going to ask the same question twice, and this speeds up your hiring process. You could take 3 interviews and turn them into 1 panel interview. So your interviewing process becomes screening interview by phone, by someone that's got a list. They're asking everybody the same questions. They're screening in or screening out. Then the person goes in front of a panel interview and then a hire. So it's a 3-step quick process. Engagement and turnover will be greatly improved if you improve your intake, recruiting, interviewing, and hiring process, period. It will greatly be improved, I promise you. Now, I've covered a lot. I know I've covered a lot. And again, the reason I do this is you're going to get the recording of this call. I've tried to stress the things that I think are more, most important, and again, I talked about performance objectives. I talked about, from your last place of employment, not pitching a job first. If you're sending email, make sure your subject line is compelling where people are going to open it. These are all good things, but every one of you is going to get something different from this presentation. And so I want to give you an action item because the National Speakers Bureau, I belonged to that for about a year, and they just irritated me because they would say when you do a webinar or when you speak in front of a group, only 5% of the people you're addressing are going to change anything. I don't want this call to be a waste of your time. I would like you to look back and call LiveHire someday and say, you know what, LiveHire, that call was life-changing for me. I learned something in that call that helped me be better, helped us attract better talent. It really helped me elevate my own career. I'm so grateful that you guys offered that webinar. So after this webinar, I want you to roll up your sleeve to speed up your talent acquisition process by being open to new ideas to improve the success of the people you hire, as well as your success. And so what I want you to do is just pick 3 ideas. Go back through the handout, pick 3 ideas, listen to the recording. What hit you? When I said something, if you cringed, if you went, oh, I'm not doing that, that's the idea that you should do first. And what I want to ask all of you is, when is the last time you had a lump in your throat or a knot in your stomach? When is the last time you were totally uncomfortable? Because you should feel that once or twice a week. If you're always comfortable, then you're working in your comfort zone. You're not changing the way you're working. Because when you try something new, it's going to give you a knot in your stomach or a lump in your throat. And I don't care if you name the knot in your stomach or the lump in your throat, Barbara Bruno. I want you to try new things. I want you to implement things that are working right now. Because you can't sit there and wait for people to apply with you. You've got to go out there and you've got to track talent down because it is so competitive. The talent is in the driver's seat, and they're going to be in the driver's seat for a long time to come. And training obviously is key to resolving any issues while helping you achieve the greatest success. If any of you are interested, we do offer all kinds of training programs. There's a QR code that you can set up a call with one of my experts if you're interested in talking to any of us. But again, I think the most important part of this call is the question session. Now I'm going to turn this over, and I don't have the great accent that you're going to hear next. And I'm not near as handsome as your next presenter. I mean, I'm just sitting here staring at his picture that, just because I just love to talk to him. So he's going to take over for the next 10 minutes, but please don't drop off, because after this, you can ask either, I want to say your name wrong, Lagone, I'm going to pronounce your name wrong. You can ask either of us questions. So please hang in there, listen to his presentation, and then come back so that you could ask me any question you want. So the floor is all yours.
Over to you, Leiron. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Barb. Really appreciate it. And there was some really good content in there, and it ties in really well with what we speak to. Obviously, being a tech company, there's only so much that technology can do to help accelerate the process. And whenever we go through an implementation with a new client, we always say that there's 3 things, right? There's your people, So making sure you have the right people in place is key. There's the processes, which is obviously what you covered on, and you gave some really good tips there. And then there's the technology. And yes, you will get some, a little bit of efficiencies from changing one of the three, but really when we look to work with our clients, it's effectively, it's people, processes, and technology. When they all come together, that's when you really start to see, the efficiencies and your ROI. Right, I'm going to share my screen quickly over here. And I'll just sort of, talk a bit about what we're seeing in the market and sort of how we're helping some of our clients. So there's sort of 4 key things that keep coming up in the conversations that we're having. The first one is that there's a lack of candidate engagement and very high dropout rates. Barb, you touched on it before about being ghosted. We're seeing that happen more and more, and that really comes down to just a lack of engagement throughout the recruitment process. We're seeseeing lower numbers than usual from your traditional hiring sources. And what I mean by that is things like job boards are no longer, I guess, yielding the success rates that clients traditionally used to see in years gone by. And as a result, they're looking for other ways to optimize, their sourcing channels. As a result of traditional sources not necessarily being as efficient, time to hire and cost of hiring is really starting to blow out. To give you an idea, in Australia, in 2018, the average time to hire was about 35 days. Now the average time to hire sits at over 50 days. So it's taken us a lot longer to fill vacancies. It's costing us a lot more, but also there's a cost attributed to not having somebody in a position, which from a sales perspective, you can often put a dollar figure on it. Sometimes in back office roles, that might be a little bit harder to actually quantify. But also what we're hearing a lot from people that we're speaking to is that the systems that people are currently using, they're still quite rigid. The experiences aren't great, and it doesn't really enable recruiters to be agile, which to what you spoke about as well, when you have that unicorn, that great candidate, being able to be agile, we still are finding that a lot of people are stuck using traditional systems and having to follow a process which isn't necessarily fit for purpose when they come across great people. And one of the reasons for that is the way businesses traditionally recruit is still reliant on those reactive sources, which aren't necessarily yielding the results that they once were. So when a client comes in and they either have to take a job description from a hiring manager or from a vendor, they're then forced to traditionally go and advertise their job. They have to wait for people to apply. As a result, you have to be reactive. So straight away, you're on the back foot and you're kind of playing catch up from the get-go. You effectively go through the process, you maybe make a hire or two, you reject the rest, and then a couple of months later, you're recruiting the same types of positions. And at LiveHire, we set out to try and change the way businesses approach the recruitment or treat the recruitment process. We view recruitment and total talent management as a holistic approach. And LiveHire's mission is to empower the entire flow of talent. And what we mean by that is it's taking a larger view of all talent interested in your business. It doesn't matter whether this is external talent coming in, it's internal mobility, or it's people that maybe have worked for you in the past that might be open to positions in the future, your alumni. Having a central source for all talent interested in your organization where you've got visibility over the skill sets that you have will enable you to accelerate your hiring because you can understand what are the skill sets that we have now, but also what are the skill sets we're going to need for the future. And if we have those skill sets at our fingertips, great. If we don't, we can start developing strategies to go to market to find that talent for the future. And key to that is that LiveHire talent community. So your source of truth. And it doesn't matter where people are connecting or how they are connected with your business. It's enabling or funneling everything into one central source of truth, that talent community, through a similar experience, regardless of how they're connecting with your business. Instead of recruiters spending the majority of their time focusing on sourcing and screening and rejecting talent, which is largely I guess a very manual process. LiveHire has inbuilt AI built into the system to assist with your heavy lifting with the sourcing, with the screening, and enables you to move and build talent pipelines ahead of need before requisitions become available. And because of that matching algorithm and the suggested matches, the system is always doing the heavy lifting in the background. Your focus as a recruitment consultant is then effectively engaging with your talent, nurturing that talent, building a relationship with that talent. So when opportunities become available, you've got people that are pre-screened, pre-qualified to move through the process. And key to that is actually making it really personal. And if we think about how we communicate with people today, the easiest way to get hold of most people is via text message. A lot of people won't answer their phones from numbers that they don't recognize, and emails are often an exercise which is I'll respond at the end of the day. Whereas most people have either got their phones in their pocket if they're, at a deskless job. But if you are at a desk job, your phone is probably on your desk. So the ability to quickly engage with people via text message is absolutely crucial. Now, on LiveHire, we make all our messaging two-way. So every organization gets their own phone number. It's registered to your business. All messages come from that number, and candidates can respond back to the same number as well. So it starts building that sort of social media conversations, which are obviously all time and date stamped within the platform. What we find is the average response time to all communications that go out sits at 17 minutes via text. Now, it's important to understand with LiveHire, we do send out emails as well, and we do track both the response rates for email and text. But you'll find that at LiveHire, we never talk about the email response rates because they're 70 times slower. So if you really want to accelerate your processes, you have to be using text as the easiest and the fastest way to engage with candidates. And you also have to make it that they can respond back. And again, making it personal. We've all received those mass mailers where you get an email with, 15 jobs and it says, "Hi, Barb, here's the new jobs that we have. Which one would you like to apply for?" And the truth is, well, none of them really tickle my fancy because you can see that it comes across as a mailer. However, based on when you use AI, and you can make things very personalized, but also targeted, and we often invite our candidates just to apply for one job, which highly matches their experience. What we find is that for every 3 invitations you send out, one person will respond and join your shortlist. Now, we compare that with job adverts and the response rates from things like adverts. You need 15 candidates to apply to one job ad just to get one on your shortlist. So there's an efficiency play for your hiring managers. You don't have to, spend as much time screening and reviewing candidate CVs because the matching algorithms are that much stronger. Now, I mentioned AI a little bit already, and again, it's obviously a bit of a buzzword at the moment. I don't think we can ever have a conversation with a potential client who isn't interested in what are you guys doing from an AI perspective. And with LiveHire, we've taken a slightly different approach to the use of AI. Our whole philosophy is to automate things that recruiters and HR managers don't like doing to enable you to focus on value add and providing a positive experience. And what we have done is use AI and things like ChatGPT and the like to enhance job descriptions. So those manual processes that recruitment and HR people traditionally don't enjoy doing, effectively utilizing AI to help improve how you write your job descriptions, understanding the tones that you would like to have represent you within the business, but then also go one step further and helping you with interview questions I guess that align with the types of job descriptions that you might be looking for in the future, as well as obviously enhancing our matching algorithms and our resume passing skills. So with that, I'm going to pause there, and I'm going to hand over back to you, Karen, to see if there's any questions that have come up through the chat.
Thanks so much, Leron. That's fantastic. We do have some questions for Barb already. So let's get started. What are some questions we should ask the candidate during the interview process that would help us recruit the right candidate?
Okay, I'll give you a couple of questions that you need to ask every candidate. Number 1, ask them, what are the 5 things you change about your current job if you were your boss? Because that's the reason they're talking to you. When you ask people, why are you leaving your job? They give you the same 13 answers. But if you ask somebody, what are the 5 things you change about your company if you were your boss? They're going to give you why they're talking to you. There's something going on at their current job that they can't change. They have no control over. And then they won't take a counteroffer. Because if they just say money and advancement, they're using you to get a counteroffer. The other question you want to ask them is, what must be there for you to make a change today? So what must be there? What's most important for you to make a change today? Because when you're matching for a job, if you know the 5 things they change about their current job, sometimes those things exist at your company. And now you know it's not a match. And so those are critical. Those are 2 very critical answers. The other question I want you to ask is, what offers have you received and turned down? Because often you have a job in mind for this person. They've just turned down another job that's exactly like the one that you have in mind for them. So those are only 3 because we've got limited time. But if I was going to give you 3, the 4th one I want you to ask is, What have you accomplished and what is the impact of your accomplishments? Give me 5 things that you're the most proud of in your working life. Because when you present a candidate to one of your hiring managers, you don't want to restate their resume. You want to talk about when they left, what were they noted for? What did they do and what was the impact on past employers? Because if they're a high achiever for a past employer, your hiring manager realizes they're going to do that for you. So those would be the top 4 questions I would suggest you ask.
Thanks, Barb. Also, Barb recently wrote an ebook for us on strategic job interview questions. So I'll share that in the follow-up email when we send out a link to the recording. There's some great content and some great interview questions in there. So wonderful.
Right.
Next one is, hi, Barb. Thanks for your insights. Working in the disability sector, mandatory pre-employment checks via external agencies significantly slow down our recruitment process. What are your suggestions to overcome this and mitigate candidate drop-off?
Right. And again, if you're an external recruiter working for, like you're a third-party recruiter working for a company, then right, you've got some parameters and you've got some hoops you've got to jump through. But what you have to realize is it's really important because sometimes you can't compete with internal hiring. You know, what you have to do is this a job that they're having trouble filling internally. So now they're going outside. They don't have a candidate that's internal that they're considering. And so now you've got to get a target date to fill. And you have to have the exact same conversations with your client companies. You know, what is the target date to fill? What is the process? Because the really top candidates are often on the marketplace very quickly. We've actually done, you know, reference checking, assessments and that right after the very first interview to get it moving so that it doesn't slow down the process, because often that could be part of the second or third interview and now you're pushing it back. And in the States, you said hiring in Australia is roughly at 50 days. It's funny because in the States it's 55 days. So we're right at that same level of, you know, the slowness of the hiring. The high achievers though, they're hired in 72 hours. You know, so I think you have to show, again, when you're talking to your client, show them the benefit to them to, you know, maybe normally you can go through their process, but when you call them and say, I have a high achiever, they're not going to be on the marketplace long. Can you fast track them? Because if not, I'm not going to even put them in your hiring process. So take them away, you know, because there's no sense starting, because by the time you get through their interviewing process, the candidate will be gone. You need to market them to other clients.
Okay, the next one is, do qualifications matter over experience in terms of hiring?
It depends. I think that people are realizing right now, many people are changing industries. They just are. You know, they're changing what they're doing for a living. And so people are looking at transferable skills. And so when you talk about credentials and what is the value of experience, you all have transferable skills. You were born with some transferable skills. It could be excellent communication. It could be that you're a problem solver, that you're very collaborative. And right now in the job market, soft skills are lacking. Employers are really trying to identify those soft skills, which are collaborating, you know, communicating, you know, delegating, all those kind of skills. So you can look at the soft skills. So I think when you're pre-qualifying a candidate, just because they don't have, if somebody has, by the way, if you say somebody has to have 5 years of experience and you interview somebody that has 3 years of experience, but they're doing the job, you have to realize if somebody's doing a job, they don't want to do the same job for you, even if you're going to offer them more money. They want to learn something. They want to stretch. And so some people get promoted faster because they're a high achiever, but you can't present the exact job that a person's doing and just offer them more money and expect them to be retained. They'll take your job and they'll keep interviewing until they find a job that's going to help them stretch. So identify transferable skills and realize and have this discussion with your hiring managers. We have to hire people that are almost there, but they're going to learn something. That's when they're going to become engaged and retained.
Yeah, that's a great answer, Barb. Got one more. If anyone else has questions, please send them through. Barb mentioned someone who is not a job hopper may not interview well. In this case, for someone who is not confident at interviewing, how do you see through it to ensure you find the right candidate? As usually, if they are not confident, their responses are not likely to be great.
Right. And there's a big difference between not a good interviewer and not confident. Because a lot of people that are not good at interviewing are very confident people. They're just very uncomfortable with the interviewing process because it's a sales process. Confidence is a total different thing. And you can find out how confident a person is by asking them questions about, where have they stretched themselves, where have they had something up, use what 5 words would describe you if they don't use confident. You can ask questions around that. An assessment test can also, show if a person's confident or not. I'm talking about a person who is confident, qualified, but just sucks at interviewing. They're not comfortable with it. Their eye contact might be bad. They might, give short answers because they're not comfortable. They feel like they're bragging, and so if you're interviewing someone like that, ask them to talk about their job. Ask them to give you examples of what they're doing, and it opens them up, and let them know at the very beginning, I know interviewing is not going to be your strong point. You're not a salesperson. I want to get to know you. I want to know what's important to you, what you want to do. And all of a sudden they let their guard down and you just have a conversation. So I wasn't talking about someone who's not confident for you to hire them, not confident in interviewing. Most people are not confident in interviewing. They're not. Even some salespeople get uncomfortable when they have to sell themselves. So I'm talking about people. There's a lot of people out there that are passed by because they're not good interviewers. And then you look at their career and you wonder why you didn't hire them. And by the way, don't be afraid to hire a past employee back. I spoke at a CEO conference recently, and they had a breakout on how do you get your past employees to come back. And so if anybody reapplies with you, and when you're interviewing people, if you say they used to work for you, don't be afraid to present them, because we always ask, did you ever have a company that you regretted leaving? And if they've been out in the job market 8 or 10 years, they quit a person, they didn't quit the company. Don't be afraid to hire, ex-employees back if they have a good record with you.
Perfect. One more question for you, Barb. How do you suggest we tailor the recruitment process to support candidates who are neurodiverse?
Are these people that you want to hire or that you can't hire because they're newer?
It says, I think that
Can you read it again, Karen?
how do you suggest we tailor the recruitment process to support candidates who are neurodiverse?
Right. And again, you can't alter your process. You can't lower your requirements in order to hire a diverse candidate. There are many diverse candidates out there that are just as qualified as non-diverse candidates. What you have to do is you have to know that you're sourcing where there are diverse candidates. There are universities that have more diverse alumni. There are groups that diverse candidates belong to. There are certain neighborhoods that diverse candidates live in. I mean, there's things that you can do in your sourcing and your outreach to reach qualified diverse candidates. And again, if you do a panel interview, that helps you hire diverse candidates. But the important thing is you've got to get them in your talent pool. And it sounds like LiveHire, if I listen to the presentation right, you would think that we talked before this call. And I swear we didn't talk. But my whole presentation was so in line with what LiveHire does, because again, it's your brand and it's what you put it. And people look at the pictures of the employees that work for you. If I'm interviewing with you and I don't see myself in the department, I'm not going to be comfortable. And so you have to make a concerted effort, but you're not going to support them by lowering requirements or asking different questions. You put them through the exact same hiring process. What you change is your sourcing, your outreach is what's changed.
Okay, perfect. Next one, as you mentioned, recruiters are changing industries from private to APS and vice versa. However, employers are judging the candidates based on their industry and not experience. How can we justify the transferable skills and promote their skills?
Right. And I think, it's interesting because it's not an easy sell. And this is something that we've really been doing since COVID. Like, we've had to really sell transferable skills. And so again, there's a couple ways to do it. Is when you're talking to someone, you have to say, okay, I can only recruit candidates from our industry, but the talent pool is really small and they're demanding money that's much higher than we're willing to pay. We're noticing that a lot of people are stealing people from our industry and putting them in different industries, and there's a lot of transferable skills. It's educating your hiring managers. But if you get performance objectives, see, the key to Identifying how somebody with transferable skills is qualified is if they can hit the performance objectives, if they can, if they can achieve the performance objectives, if you break the job down into percentages, this is the percentage of the job of what they need, and identify the soft skills that they need. Soft skills are always transferable. So get your hiring managers not only to give you the hard skills of the job, but what are the soft skills? Problem solving, team building, communicating, all those, strategic thinking, get the soft skills. And then when they give you the soft skills and they give you the performance objectives, you're going to go back and give you what percentage of the time they're going to do the job. If someone can do the job, it doesn't make any difference what industry they come from. And often this is a person that's going to become more engaged and more retained because they're learning a new industry. They could be doing a very similar job in a different, this is a way to get retention and engagement up too, because they're excited about entering a new industry.
Yeah, great answer. Thank you, Barb. Well, I think that's it. That was our last question. Oh, no, there's one more. We do a lot of mass hiring, and currently we are facing a hard time finding the right candidates. Could you please share some of your tips?
And what was the question? How to find the right candidate?
Yeah, we do a lot of mass hiring, and currently we are facing a hard time finding the right candidates. Could you please share some of your tips for finding the right candidate?
And the problem is when you really run into, when a hiring manager says they're not a fit, they're not the right person, that does nothing to help you. And so matching is the toughest part of what we do. And so when you're trying to find the right candidate, what you do is you get percentages on the job. What is the breakdown of the job? When you're interviewing a candidate, you go, okay, what percentage of your time are you spending doing what? Like if somebody tells me they do 5 things on the job, I'm going to assume that they do each thing 20%. When in essence, their job might be 10% of their time is spent on everything else, and 90% is spent on this one thing that they do. So when they go to interview with my hiring manager, they're not a match. And so often, when you're interviewing somebody, also break their experience down into percentages. And then more importantly, ask them, okay, what percentage of your time do you want to do things in a future job? Because everybody's got a part of their job that they don't like. And so they might have a part of their job that they're doing 20% of right now and they hate it. And the job that you have is 40% of the job. They're not going to take that job. That's not a match. So percentages, quantifying, using numbers, using percentages, that's what helps. And also when you're presenting things, use on a scale of 1 to 10. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 you're extremely interested, 1 you're not. When you're presenting to your hiring managers, you want to get to the point where they interview 100% of the candidates you present. You're only going to present people that you've pre-qualified that are a match, and that's where you want to get, because nobody can put their life on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper. No one can. And say, that's why the intake is so important. The trust is so important. Then you're going to make better matches because you've got a better rapport with your hiring manager. You know what they want. You know what they want to hire.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, well, that's it for today. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your busy day with us. We appreciate it. Thank you, Barb, for sharing all your expertise and your tips. We really do appreciate it. And thank you, Liron, for taking us through LiveHire. Everyone, have a wonderful day or evening.
Right.
Thanks very much, guys.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I love LiveHire and I really appreciate this. So remember, implement something, everybody. Make this call worth your time. And then send LiveHire a thank you note for offering the training. Bye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.